Ask Reddit, sailors/people working at sea, what's the most creepy or most amazing sight you witnessed? Fresh out of college, I got a job in Cambridge, Massachusetts, or so they said, as an architect designing whatever. Ended up doing oil rigs, and one beautiful morning there were sharks going under the main platform like always, but there were 2 dead sharks, next morning 3 new dead, then 4 the next day. Then a steady 4 or 5 a day for a week or 2, they would float up under the see-through deck that looked much like a metal colander. Crew would have to punch them down so the current could catch them with a large pole. What made it really weird was they looked like they had heart attacks or died in their sleep, no marks or bites or anything. The guys on the rig had all kinds of theories. Then one morning, while in a room that was completely submerged and had a beautiful view as we sat in a meeting, everyone got to see the reason the sharks were dying, like viewing it on a movie screen. This octopus had made itself a home between the base and the deck. A shark was swimming by in a cruising fashion, and we see these tentacles grab it right in front of the glass and snap it like a glow stick. The marine biologist smiled and said octopus is literally doing that to entertain themselves, because he can. The marine biologist lowered a dive camera, and this octopus was huge. The crew would joke about it thereafter. People would smoke on the deck at night and people would say, "Don't let the octopus in." Seeing those tentacles was just insane for their length, and to think about how a shark is mostly muscle and the octopus would just snap them was kinda scary. Oftentimes in the Navy I'd stand on the fantail and watch the ocean. Once we had 100s, probably around 400 dolphins riding the carrier's wake. They followed us for 3 days. In the middle of the Pacific, it's so dark and there's so little light pollution, you can see reds, browns, and faint blues of gas clouds in the starscape. Another time I was watching the water at night. They say it draws you in, and it really does. You look at this pitch black void, with only the wake or turbulence of the water catching light, and intrusive thoughts of jumping in just naturally occur. It's mesmerizing, especially if you're alone. At night during one of these events I saw blue glowing water, what I now know was bioluminescent algae, and inside this rather massive patch of blue glowing water were squid that appeared to be maybe 15 to 20 foot long. You could catch their outline by the light from the water. I stared at what was multiple squid passing by for minutes, what seemed like an eternity, and then the light started going away in the spot I was staring. There was still a lot of glowing water, we weren't headed out of it. But this patch gets darker and darker and darker until pitch black. A solid 15 seconds of intense curiosity. Suddenly a lot of turbulence and a whale surfaces. It had snatched up all the squid. The whale cocked to one side and looked at the ship, and our eyes met, I want to think. It studied the ship for a moment until just sinking back down until the glow of the water masked it completely. Giant spears plunging in and out of the sea. In the Gulf of Alaska, I have seen some shit. But one of the most terror-inspiring things I've seen are what can happen with some of the loose logs from the logging trade. Sometimes when a big log gets loose from a raft, it becomes partially waterlogged and floats small end up. So you have this 4-foot diameter telephone pole in the sea, sticking up 40 feet into the air. No biggie. Shows up on radar, and easy to spot. Now, give that pole 20 years of floating around or so. It rots in such a way that it becomes sharpened to a perfect point by wind and waves, and looks quite menacing. Now, put it in a gale, with 25-foot waves, 50 feet trough to peak. And it becomes a towering spike of death that shoots up from the sea every 15 to 20 minutes, out of nowhere, 60 feet into the air, only to plunge down into the dark depths waiting to skewer some unsuspecting boat in a few minutes when it thrusts out of the ocean again. It is a genuinely terrifying sight, rare, but not so rare that I haven't seen 2 in one season. It's like the spiked dick of Neptune looking for an opportunity to F your shit up in a particularly terrifying way. The Northern Lights in the middle of nowhere, Alaska. We were anchored in a remote cove, so the CO agreed to turn off all the exterior lights. Just a crazy, crazy thing to see. In the pitch black of night, in the middle of the vast emptiness of the sea, you see the stars filling the heavens, and more shooting stars than you would expect streaking to the earth with their fiery tails. As your eye draws down to the water, you find that somehow the ocean is darker and emptier than the sky. Your eyes strain for a glimpse of anything, but ultimately you only catch glimpses of strange and mysterious creatures lively swimming just beneath the surface, occasionally peeking above the surface or triggering flashes of bioluminescence that disappear as suddenly as they appear. Was on watch and a lookout reported a ship on fire on the horizon. Looked through my binos and saw what they were looking at. Looked like a plume of flame really far away, just over the line of the horizon. Went and consulted the astro books and discovered that it was actually moonrise. The tip of the crescent was coming up over the astronomical horizon and was bright red-orange. Still very cool. I've also seen the Flying Dutchman illusion, dolphins swimming through bioluminescent waters that looked like glowing torpedoes, meteor hits near the ship, lightning hitting the mast, waterspouts in the Caribbean, and the green flash at sunset. Many more things as well. Being at sea is just plain trippy. In the USCG. Was into the Eastern Pacific in February 2017. The bioluminescence at night was unlike anything I'd ever seen. Sailing the Caribbean, you get the glittering speckles in your wake, but in this water, the stern wake glowed very bright. Almost made it pointless to be running darkened ship. The bioluminescence was so much so that even fish in the water activated it. I remember a ghostly, glowing cloud silently move in toward us where we were taking it all in on the fantail. Then just as silently it moved away. We could see larger glowing clouds, likely a school of fish, then a glowing streak, maybe tuna or something come flying into the glowing mass, and the school would explode like fireworks underwater. Saw this occur a few times. It was amazing. Another time we were in the Caribbean, middle of the night at flight quarters. I was on the fire party and we were staged on the forecastle. We were kind of bored waiting for the helicopter come back. All of a sudden, this massive meteor hurtles by overhead, completely turning night into day for a second. We were all in disbelief. The people wearing NVGs were a little ticked, though. Was standing topside watch on a dark night when the sky suddenly turned bright. For about 3 seconds, something was incoming that lit all the weather decks up like daylight. This sparked quite a reaction on the bridge and in operations. We were forward deployed during wartime, although not in a region where active fighting was expected. For a moment people scrambled, fearing we had been targeted for a surprise missile attack. Then the sky went dark again, just as suddenly as it had began, leaving us safe and alone again. Yet there was still a whole bunch of commotion on comms as people jabbered stuff that amounted to Whiskey Tango Foxtrot. The only crew member who saw what had really happened was me. It's a meteor. It's a meteor. It's a meteor. Had to repeat the report several times before anyone paid attention. A meteor had come down almost directly above us, then broken up into 3 pieces as it burned up in the atmosphere. It was like a fireball. That put on quite a light show in the ocean on a moonless night at dark 30 in the middle of nowhere. Astronomers call these bolides. It might even have been a superbolide, but it isn't on the list of recorded superbolides. We may have been the only ship that saw it. Based on the time of year and the location, it may have been one of the southern torrids, a meteor shower that's noted for producing fireballs. Not a whole lot of people ever witness a meteor that's spectacular. By lucky coincidence, I got a good view of this one. User avatar. Level 1. 89 Elray. 20 hours ago. All-seeing upvote. I used to work on an Atlantic salmon farm a few miles out to sea. Best job I ever had. Creepy. We were round at the second site, other side of the island to the main site, and this one was being left fallow for a couple years, so just required some maintenance every now and then / was used for storage. Me and my brother were there late afternoon to check some ropes or moorings or something, I can't remember, when all of a sudden there was this really strong electrical / copper smell and the place went silent. It was flat calm, relatively clear skies, so it wasn't a thunderstorm coming in. For some reason this smell really freaked us both out, and we both felt like we were being watched by something, and there was a kind of strange feeling / atmosphere to the place where it just seemed off. After a couple minutes it went away and the atmosphere returned to normal. We were pretty glad to get back to the main site but never experienced anything like that again. Really weird. Intrusive thoughts of jumping in. I used to work on a yacht, and when I was on night watch I had this thought constantly. I thought it was super messed up, but now that I see this comment I'm happy I'm not the only one, lol. It's called The Call of the Void. Creepiest would be underway on October 31st / Halloween Day, off maybe 15 miles off the coast of Florida near Miami. Lookout sights a White House boat, looks like it's just drifting. So we get closer on our fast response cutter, 154 foot, to make contact with them. Nothing, no one responded. Used radio, loud hailer, and ship's whistle. So captain said, let's launch our small boat and go investigate. During the small boat mission brief, I reminded everyone that it's Halloween Day and this looks just like a horror movie storyline. So the boat launches and the crew gets on board. The doors are closed, but lucky open so the crew can investigate. The boarding team slow conducts its safety sweep while looking any crew on board. So here is a houseboat floating on the ocean with no land in sight, abandoned. So the boarding team marked the vessel with spray paint and left it. Houseboat is probably in Europe if it didn't succumb to the relentless sea. Another time in the middle of the night between midnight and 3 a.m. we start tracking a target of interest. We clearly see someone and at least 2 others on a cabin cruiser. The vessel is unlit, which is a red flag, and steady speed. So we follow it and decide to launch the small boat for pursuit once they are close to U.S. territorial seas. We run our small boat with lights off as well and have night vision goggles to help us see them. I pull up with 15 feet minus 20 inches of the vessel and flip the blue lights and spotlight on them. No one is on the boat. All we see is a boat, no one standing up behind the helm or on deck. So I creep up closer, then all of a sudden, we see arm hanging over the gunwale. The boarding team starts yelling, show us your hands, and stand up. No one moved, they were laying on top of each other. So we get the boarding team on board and start checking boat for safety. We transferred all of the 26 migrants off the 35-foot boat on the fast response cutter, 154. Thank you for watching, friend. Until next time, and remember to stay hydrated.